Good evening, everybody. I'd like to resume the July 15, 2019 Lacey Township Board of Education meeting. At this time, I would like to turn it over to Dr. Clark for superintendent comments.
Thank you. All right, welcome to the July board meeting. Hard to believe that it's mid-July already. Summer is going very quickly, but I hope that our families and our students are enjoying summer vacations. We are hard at work preparing our schools to open in September, and in that regard, I want to acknowledge and recognize and thank our custodians. Tomorrow, I'm going to be doing a walkthrough to take a look at all of the work that they're doing. Lots of work going on at Mill Pond. Our vestibule construction projects are well underway, as well as many other projects. So big kudos to our custodians. They are working very hard, and some of them are working in the heat, although the last couple of days haven't been too bad, but I know last week was a little tough. So thank you to all of them. I want to extend another huge congratulations to all of our graduates. I know that they are probably hard at work preparing for the next chapters of their lives, and we hope that they come back and fill us in on the great things that they are doing, whether that be college, the workforce, the military. We wish them well. A few reminders to our families, especially to those families who have kindergarten students starting in the fall. Registration is open and available on our website, and if you haven't already, families, please register your students as soon as possible so that we can get them in our system. And I also wanted to mention kindergarten orientation will take place on Wednesday, August 28th at 9 o'clock a.m. at each of the elementary schools respectively. We have also sent out a few, or actually one so far, automated call letting parents know that Champions will be providing our before and after school child care program for our K-6 students, kindergarten through 6, starting in September 2019. Registration is also open for Champions, and information about that program can be found on our website. If you go under Students and Families in the black banner and then click on the child care program, there is a informational flyer and contact information for Sarah Hatton, who is our area director, for any questions. My comments are short this month. Again, I wish all of our families and our students a very restful and relaxing rest of summer. Once again, don't forget summer reading. And that concludes my comments. Thank you, President Giordano, for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Dr. Clark. At this time, I'd like to open the floor for public comment. You guys are going to have to race, it looks like.
There's plenty of seats.
Tony Rizzoli, Sunrise Beach. Fasten your seatbelt. Dr. Clark, how many graduated from 2019 class?
Don't quote me on this. I'd have to check, but I want to say the number is 305.
305. What was the dollar figure for scholarship money totally awarded to 305 students?
So are you talking about local scholarships?
Total scholarships awarded amount, dollar amount,
I don't have an exact, but it was over $1 million.
over $1 billion.
$1 million.
1 million.
I wish it was over $1 billion.
Well, I'm asking a question because I kind of gauge it against my high school that I graduated from, and I want to just compare. Okay, the one I graduated from had 146 graduating seniors and $34 million in awarded scholarships. We have a long way to go, folks.
Where'd you go to high school?
St. Joe's, Metuchen.
Okay.
Okay?
Private school?
Private school.
Okay.
Okay, we got a long way to go. The goal I would like to see is 200 of our graduates getting 25% of what they get. To me, that's kind of my goal and why I come to these, some of the reasons why I come to these meetings.
So I do have a question, though.
Yeah.
Are you asking about local scholarships that?
No,
that
it's
this-
total.
Okay, that number is different, and I'm actually taking a look real quick.
Could you, I'm just curious what your numbers again, 140,
146, all boys,
okay, and how many,
34 million.
so each student got 200,
No,
average of 200?
not each student,
No, okay, average.
the average is,
$242,000.
yeah. And
What school-
they weren't the best.
When-
Last year was
wait,
even
wait,
better.
When did you graduate high school?
Oh, I graduated,
How much did
1960s.
college cost back then a year?
About 30,000.
No, I'm not going to argue, but I think your numbers are off, because no one got, back then days, no one averaged $242,000.
No, back then, no. I'm talking about 2019 graduates.
Oh, 2019 graduates.
2019
I'm sorry.
graduates,
No,
no.
you said when I graduated.
No, no, no,
So-
the school I graduated
Okay.
from.
So let me clarify.
Okay,
Over $1 million in scholarships from colleges and universities,
okay.
and over $300,000 in local scholarships.
Okay, so $1.3 million.
Right.
We got a long way to go, is what I'm trying to say. We should not sit back on our laurels. We have goals. This is a very big goal. I understand that. You're not in the same league at this point, but we should look to go to a higher league. That's what we should be doing, okay? It's not unattainable. It can be done. It's being done. That's number one. Number two, on page 7, no, excuse me, number 7 on page 5 on the agenda tonight, what is the sidebar agreement about with the Lacey Township Education Association?
So the language in the contract currently reads per diem, or makes reference to per diem employees. And the change that we made is to change that language from per diem to part-time. Part-time hourly, I should say. So it was to just amend that language.
And it doesn't change the pay, does it change the pay structure to a per-hour basis as opposed to
Well,
a
the-
4-hour set amount?
The sidebar agreement, and I forget which number it is, does say, I'm sorry, no, it does not.
It does not. Okay, so a minimum per diem is a set amount to the LTEA, not if you do 1 hour in one day or 5 hours in one day, you still get a per diem amount.
It's a part, so it's changing per diem to hourly,
So it's hourly.
hourly.
So in a way, it could be a money-saving thing, because if they only do 1 hour as opposed to 5, you only got to pay them for the 5 and not for the per
Potentially.
diem minimum.
Potentially.
Okay. That's what I wanted to know. Thank you. I have a question for Mr. DeGeorge, if you'll allow me. Mr. DeGeorge, do you track attendance of the board members?
I do.
Is it mandated that you track attendance for the board members?
It is.
Is that under New Jersey State Statute 18A semicolon 12-3?
If you say so, I don't know how to
Well,
memorize.
that's what
I don't
was,
have it memorized.
that's what was quoted to me by the township attorney at the township meeting when I asked the same question.
Then I'm sure you're right.
Okay. There is also a Lacey policy number 0145 that's dated November 2005, and that's a statute also of 19 semicolon 4-1. Now, under those statutes, there's minimums that the Board of Education member must attend, or else they could be removed. I've been coming to the meetings for a long time, as you all know. The attendance of this group in the last, and I'm only going to go, the last year that I tracked, starting January, has been less than desirable from my perspective as a taxpayer. I'm always looking to get better bang for the buck, whether it be from the teachers, whether it be from the administration, or whether it be from my board members. Now, you board members you have a thankless job, and you heard me say this many, many times, okay? I'd love to be there. In the previous town I came from, I wanted to run, so I looked it up. Could I? And because of my lifestyle choices and my obligations, I could not fulfill the obligation. So I'm aware of attendance situations and what you must and must not, what you have to fulfill. This is not a new subject to me. To make up the difference, I come to the meetings and I stand here and I speak my mind. I think my input at times could be important. I think my ideas at times could be important. One of the obligations of you as a Board of Education member is your input and your ideas. And to not be here to give your input, not be here to express your ideas, is not only a disservice to your fellow board members, it's a disservice to the community. If you accept the job, you should fulfill the job. And there are statutes that obligate you to do so. Mr. DeGeorge, if you have tracked attendance for the board, are you obligated to inform the president or the other members of the board that somebody's in violation of the statute?
I am.
Is there a member of the board in violation of the statute? I'm not looking for a name, a yes or a no.
Right. That is in the process of being determined.
Okay. I'm glad that we're on top of the situation, and my concerns are this. How many seats are up for election in November 2019?
3 3-year terms and 1 2-year unexpired term.
That's 4 seats.
Yes, it is.
4 seats. My message here tonight, my purpose here tonight is not to really talk to you, because I'm preaching to the choir here. You all know how hard it is to be a member of the board, the hours that you have to put in, the dedication. Okay, I understand all of that, and abuse you have to take. My message is to the people on that TV camera who are listening to this. Do not run for this board if you want to build your resume and you have political ambitions. That's not the reason to run for the Board of Education. Do not run for this board if your lifestyle does not allow you to fulfill the obligations of the statute. And before you put a name on a petition, and you only need your name and 10 signatures and being a resident of the town to have your name on a petition for the Board of Elections, if you can't fulfill that obligation, look into it and see what that obligation is. Again, it's a thankless job. Input and ideas are very, very important. If we don't have enough people to run to fill all those seats, that may be a travesty for this district. The end of this month is the deadline to fill those seats. If you're thinking about it, think about it now. Do something about it now. Take your action now. Don't delay. If those seats are not filled, now I have another question for Mr. DeGeorge and Mr. Giordano. You had 4 candidates to fill Mr. Rogers' seat. If the person you're talking about is either voluntarily absents himself from being on the board for unable to fulfill his obligation or her obligation, whichever it may be, not naming names, okay, do you go back to those same people?
So you mean if the person that you're referring to?
For the balance of the term?
We will follow the same exact process that we followed when Mr. Horvath left and we appointed Mr. Peters.
All right, so you would look for new candidates.
We would open up a search and collect resumes and then follow the same interview process that we did the last time.
Okay, just so everybody knows, all right? You know, and you only fulfill that seat if it's open until the seat comes for election.
The remainder of the term, that's correct.
Right, so it could be a trial basis to see, maybe I can, maybe I can't. So don't be afraid to say, I'll do it for a month or 2 to see if I can do it. Right? Now, we still don't get enough candidates. And the petitions are not filled by at least 4 names.
Then write-ins go in.
Then I talk to the Board of Elections in the county, and I know exactly what's going to happen. Have a nice day, and thank you for your time.
You're not going to enlighten us with what's going to happen?
Write-ins.
Right.
You
Write-ins.
can win with 1 vote.
Right.
That happens in many districts.
Pretty certain there should be 4 candidates.
I know a lot of people serving with 1 vote.
All right. Anyone else for public comment?
Joanne's up.
Good evening, everyone. Joanne Michaelkowski from Forked River. You can unbuckle your seatbelts for a second. I just have a real quick question. And I have a little one who's not past the elementary level, and I'm certainly not trying to argue anything. I know it says in the agenda that it's per contract, but I don't know what this means. What does 6-period stipend mean? I'm assuming that is something that teachers get if they either work more or maybe through a period during the day, or is it that they're staying after? Because I noticed that there's nothing for Cedar Creek, Lenoka Harbor, Forked River School. I don't see any of those teachers receiving the stipends, so I just was wondering what that's about.
Right, so the stipend is paid to middle school and high school teachers. It's a long, probably, response that would take some time to explain. The language, the backstory of the 6-period stipend has evolved over time. And it is for extra time taught in the day,
Okay.
extra minutes taught in the day.
During the day, not after school?
It is not after school.
Okay.
No. So anything that would be beyond the teacher's workday would be a stipend. Or if it was co-curricular, it would be a co-curricular stipend. Extracurricular would be sports, so.
So if it's beyond what the teacher typically would do, then is it something that, like, are they giving up their own time to teach another period or another class? Or no, am I not understanding that?
Well, I wouldn't say they're giving up their time because they are being paid for it, but typically it's in lieu of a duty.
Okay,
That's probably the best way that I can explain it clearly.
okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, watch that step.
No more lessons.
Good evening. Ed Scanlon, Barnegat Pines. As a retired public school teacher, I would just like to say when someone comes up and compares a school that requires admission tests and certain scores to even enter as a freshman, and compares their scholarship attainment to a public school that enrolls everyone who applies, I think it's not what you call apples and apples. It's sort of like apples and Cadillacs. It just is not a fair comparison. And I don't want to get into debate with any former speakers. I just wish to clarify or at least give my opinion that I think that the scholarships that were attained by graduates of Lacey High were commendable. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jerome Page. I'm on the school board in Pleasantville, New Jersey. Recently, we've just been in the paper for a lot that's going on there. First, I want to give honor to and respect to all board members that are here today. As the gentleman said, it is a hard, a thankless job. I've been on the board of Pleasantville for over 15 years, was off 5, just came back, and I filled the unexpired term for one of the board members that passed away. I'm planning to run again for a 3-year seat. Our problems are a little bit different from your problems, but pretty much the same problems. We have a problem with board members not attending meetings. It is very important that when you take the oath, that you will abide and honor the laws of the state and even of your own bylaws. It states in there that a board member that missed 3 consecutive meetings without good cause, the board has a right to remove them. You know, our awards at the end of the year as board members is all the money that we get. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Is just coming and making the right decisions that we make. Because when it's time to graduate, we're proud to stand up on that stage or sit up on the stage and really see the work that's been done by our kids graduating. That is a reward for me. I received my master in boardmanship in 2005, and I want to congratulate you, Ms. Regina,
Thank you.
for that task. It is my prayer that all board members go for the master, because you understand why you're really there. I wear a hat that says faith. I don't wear it on the board when I'm on the board, but I wear it all around. You got to have faith to sit in the seats where you sit, because sometimes at night you go home and you can't sleep because of the certain decisions that were made or not made. I've been there. I've done it. I'm here to just say to you, focus on the children. Keep your focus on the children. If board members cannot make the meetings because of, quote, some real important things that they have to do, that's understandable. But when it comes down to making the real decisions that affect our children, it is important that when you take the oath, that you honor the oath, and that you make it every attempt to be present. Now, our district, we have one meeting a month. And my problem is my president doesn't want to put me on any committees. So I can't be on any committees, and I don't know when they are because she doesn't give us a calendar. But that's the problems we're dealing with. If you're on committees, the committees are important too, to make them. You can't make school board meetings, you make the committee meetings. At least you're a part of it. As the gentleman said, when we make decisions, it's based on our understanding of what we're deciding on. And if we just are not present when that important vote is taken and it causes the opposite to happen, then you have to blame yourself. So I would just say this is the first time I've ever been up this far to a school board meeting. I ended up talking to Ms. Regina, and I told her I would come because as a board member, I'm going back again for 3 years. We're trying to unseat the board president. Our elections is different. For the BA, what was the amount of absentee ballots at the last election?
I don't recall, but it wasn't a lot.
There wasn't a lot?
No.
Well, in Pleasantville, we have a system of organization that puts together over 600 to 700 absentee ballots in an election that we bring out no more than 400 to come out to election.
Oh, no.
So the organization that they have get 3 people that don't have no interest with the board, but has interest with the organization. And when the election comes is over that night, our 3 people that we supported and went out and voted for, at the end of the night, they end up losing because the other organization had put up 600 or 700 absentee ballots. Now, I'm going to tell you now that it's illegal, but we can't figure out how they do it, okay? And soon we will know how they do it. But just to say this, thank you for listening to me. It is very, very important that if there is a vote tonight, that you take it very seriously and focus back on the children, not on the person you're voting for or against. Thank you.
Jerome, real quick, I appreciate what you said, and I totally agree. I'm just curious, do you live in Lacey?
No, I don't.
Okay. I think because we usually ask for an address, and when you said I guess you're Pleasantville because you're on the board.
Absolutely. My address is 213 West Pleasant Avenue. Phone number is 609.
No. Okay.
That's okay. Thank you, thank you.
Okay.
Good evening, Deepa Hujan, Forked River. I was wondering how we were doing on the lawsuit over the S2.
Oh, don't, that's the one I forgot about.
Us too.
I forgot the name.
So we don't have any updates. Can't quite recall when the last email came in. I want to say it was probably about end of June. But that was just to tell us that, motions have been filed. And when we have updates, we will provide them.
So if it was to be reversed, any ideas what you would do with the revenue?
Great question. Have lots of conversations.
You don't want to elaborate on any more further? No?
That's counting the eggs before they're hatched.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to happen. So the elephant not in the room, by my count, it's at least the third one, so that'd be about 5 seats that are open. Whose seat is not open? And
Mr.
Regina?
Giordano, myself, and Ms. Downing's up this year.
Okay. And has the leak in the high school roof been addressed? There's been
It
a
is-
bucket in the hallway
Sure,
for...
yeah. It's a leak that we keep trying to repair under warranty. It happens in a roof of this age, but vendors keep coming out and they try to address it the best that they can. I
So
mean,
no, it's not fixed.
It's not fixed to my satisfaction yet, no.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
All right, seeing no additional public comment, I will make a motion to close the floor for public comment.
Close.
At this time, I will turn it over to, well, hold on one second. All right, at this time, I'd like to open it up for board member comments. I'll start at the end with Mr. Peters.
Thank you, Mr. Giuliano. Just real quick, I did a walkthrough of 3 of the schools last week. Being on the board, I wanted to introduce myself to some of the administrators, take a look at the schools. I hit the middle school on July 8th. Did a walkthrough. These guys are working, and girls are working extremely hard to get these schools ready. I also noticed 3 of the schools that the Fund Vestibule has started, the security program that we're doing there with the entrances. I also hit the high school, and I also did Cedar Creek School. All the guys and girls are working extremely hard, getting ready for September. And that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Peters. Mr. Riggs?
I have nothing for policy tonight. We're going to be meeting next week. So
Okay.
if any luck, we'll prepare another policy meeting in between. So then if you guys are really long, obviously might have to type on that. You might have two policy meetings to talk about. But other than that, everybody have a happy, safe summer. I don't know if you know this. I really have nothing. So, thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Riggs. Mrs. Downing?
I do really have nothing that I haven't already said. In the June meeting, I do want to thank the custodial staff, the secretarial staff, the administration. A lot of people think summer is a very laid-back time, and it's not. It is so busy getting ready for September
Thank you, Mrs. Downing. Ms. DeSenza.
Yes, I have a comment, and I'd like to thank Lucas Whalen, the Eagle Scout, who is going to do a special project. I believe it's on the football field. And I hope that he gets everything he needs to do the work, and please let us know when it's completed. I'd love to see it. This was a very busy month, even though it was summer vacation, and as Mrs. Downing indicated, there are plenty of staffers still working to get school ready for September. And we, the board, have things to do year-round, and one of the items that we are required to do by law in a timely manner is the superintendent evaluation. It finally got done, and we worked very hard to get it done on time for July 1st, and I would like to thank Mr. Riggs for assisting me with that task. There's only a week or so left to become a school board candidate, as has been mentioned. The deadline is July 29th, and Lacey currently has 4 seats on the ballot this November due to the resignation of Mr. Horvath. The 1 2-year seat to fill the remainder of his term, and the regular 3-year seats that are normally due for this board. I have petitions if anyone wants to run, and I can also notarize anyone's petition. You must be 18, a resident of the district for 1 year, and registered to vote, and able to read, write, and speak English. That's pretty much the requirements to become a board member, and have the willingness to serve. On July 9th at 6 p.m., we had a special meeting to get our track resurfacing project underway. After that meeting, I went to Toms River for the DEP's annual power plant evacuation plan public hearing. Holtec now officially owns the power plant, and the signs have been changed out front. Exelon is done in Lacey. We thank them for the financial contributions to this community and look forward to working with the new employees of Holtec. We ask that the public please be patient with all the school construction projects that are currently underway, and maybe towards the end of August I will stop by and see what those new vestibules look like. I'm anxious to see the work after it's completed. The Lacey School Board is attempting to have a retreat in August. A school district and school board can only operate well if its bylaws and policies are distinctly spelled out and well-defined, and the retreat is one way to accomplish this. A high-performing board equals a high-performing district. At least this is what we are taught at NJSBA. I have found that the Lacey District bylaws are very generic in some cases, non-existent, or not specific enough. I've also found that policies and procedures were in practice with no written documentation. This cannot and should not happen. Most bylaws show a date of 2005, and that is when our policy manuals went online with Strauss-Esme. Some of our bylaws may be original, thus the reason they are generic and do not reflect current practices. Our board policies and procedures and bylaws must be brought up to date to reflect what is actually in practice. Specifically 0155, and another one that needs fine-tuning is 0143. And at this time, I respectfully request the entire board discuss and write a negotiations committee policy and regulation, and I have requested discussion with Strauss, Esme, Phil Nicastro, and I have prepared draft negotiations committee bylaws, policy, and regulation. Board communication issues need to be addressed. I am not pleased with the dissemination of information and documentation to all board members, specifically with regard to some legal correspondence in subcommittee meetings. Whatever the board president receives or knows, he or she has an obligation to disseminate that information to all of his or her colleagues, not just 1 or 2, and not just verbally. On more than one occasion, board members have been left out of the loop, and I gave 2 examples in a recent memo. I have a question that I can't seem to get answered, and it's been asked by a member of the public. If the Janus decision about union dues became law in June 2018, and our new contract was signed in December of 2018, why didn't the attorney put any verbiage in the new contract to be legally compliant with the Janus decision? It doesn't make sense. And could we ask the labor attorney that question? Because there are lawsuits in other states pending about the union dues and fees. And quite honestly, the last thing we need is another lawsuit in this district. And last week, Mr. Bidnick asked me why he hasn't been given a list of the middle school classes under 15 students. He received a list of classes under 15 in the high school, but not one for the middle school, and he's been waiting a few months now. And I would like to see a list of the updated costs of all the health insurance plans that our employees are currently using. Someone told me the cost for the state family plan is now $43,000, but I think that's the Direct 15 price. Lacey now has everyone in Direct 10, so I would like to know the new premiums, if that could be sent to us. Because we had a spreadsheet.
What was your last line? Everyone's in what right now?
Oh,
Backwards.
is it 15, 10 to
Direct.
15? 10 to
Yes.
15, okay, I
Everyone's at
reversed it.
15.
Okay, so we're on the cheaper plan now, but I know it's not that much cheaper, but we had a spreadsheet a while back, but I'd like a current spreadsheet with the new prices. In the past, I was not invited to 2 meetings, which was supposed to be with Finance Committee. It's 3 people, not 2, and I was really hurt one night because somebody looked at me and said, "Oh, yeah, you're on Finance," as if I were an afterthought. I just want to be invited to meetings when they occur. I've already endured 3 years of what I feel was being overlooked on this board, and I have the time to make valuable contributions. And I'd like to see this district and board be the best it can be. I'm 100% willing to help rewrite and update bylaws, and this is a board function according to the New Jersey School Board Association. The time to begin planning cutbacks is now for 2020, 2021, because we know reduced state aid is on the horizon. Let's not be a group of last-minute Joes like this year talking about cuts at the 9th hour and having a special meeting. More planning in advance will make less work in the long run. I'm looking forward to the board retreat. Most other school boards schedule 2 retreats a year, one for fiscal planning purposes and one for student achievement purposes. Strategic planning, plan to be there. Goal planning, we need to do this. And I think I'm done. Looking forward to the construction projects and running that new track. Need the exercise.
Thank you, Mr. Senza. Mr. Vice President
I got one thing
Morandi.
to say, because I'll keep my mouth shut on something else, but I just want to congratulate the retirees that we had here tonight, and hope everyone enjoys the summer, and September's going to be here quick. Like I said, I was going to make another comment, but I'll keep my mouth shut. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Morandi. I'm not quite so sure I'm going to be able to stay quiet, but I will start out by congratulating the retirees this evening. As everybody has mentioned, the vestibule project is underway. The track approval went through on the 6th, and we'll be starting that project soon, and the remediation and repair of the Mill Pond School gym floor is well underway. Mr. Page, appreciate you coming out and visiting with us tonight. I think it's important that we heard your comments. I don't know if Mr. Rizzoli made his attendance facts available to you, and I know Mr. DeGeorge keeps attendance, and we're well aware of our attendance challenge that you mentioned. I'm not going to defend the individual, but I do know that we, A, are all volunteers. B, most of us have full-time jobs. I think only one of us up here is fortunate enough to be fully retired. I could probably speak for every board member that's sitting up here right now that we do this solely for the children in this district. And you're right, the collective decisions that committees make and that the board of 7 makes, because we're a board of 7, we all try to work together. Ms. DeSenza, I felt like you took a couple of shots at me tonight, and, I don't appreciate it.
I don't
You
think
know,
so.
I'm a volunteer, right, and I do this because I care about this district and the kids in this district. And I do have one of the seats that's up for election, and, the reason why I will continue to do this, if I'm fortunate enough to continue to do this, is because I care about the kids in this district. And this is about public service and giving back to this community. I was a graduate of this school district, K through 12. I went the whole way through, had a great college experience. I have a great career right now, and I want to continue to give back to this town. You know, one of the individuals that's not here tonight, and it's probably pretty easy to figure out who it is, it's a business owner in town. Again, I'm not going to defend his attendance record, but I can assure you that the individual, anybody that comes up here and volunteers, does not deserve to be publicly called out. This board needs to sit together collectively and determine how we're going to move forward with that individual. I don't think it's fair to the individual, given the nature of why the attendance is what it is and the reasons behind missing the meetings. It's not because the person doesn't care, okay? And I'll just make that clear. You know, Mr. Rizzoli, you made a comment about scholarship dollars, and I'm glad Mr. Scanlon came up and said what he said. You really can't compare private schools to public schools. Although, yeah, would we like to have millions of dollars more in scholarship? Absolutely. You know, I see scholarships at local private schools, and the money is a little bit greater. You know, one thing to mention, too, is they're, you know, out of the $1 million, that doesn't necessarily mean that that's the accepted amount of scholarship.
Well, and the other point that I didn't make is that there are a lot of scholarships that aren't reported, that we
Right.
don't know about. So that is absolutely not an exact number, for sure.
Right. So, you know, just, you know, Ms. DeCenza, I'll go back to you. You know, this is what a former board member used to coin as what we're getting into is called the silly season. And I know Mrs. Downing knows that. You know, I too would like to call out anybody in the community. I know you looked in the camera, Mr. Rizzoli, when you said, hey, listen, if you want to come up here and volunteer and get your 10 signatures, I did it last year. I did it when we had a contentious meeting last year, and two of those individuals came up and ran. Two of them would have won. One of them backed out the last week before the vote or before the election. One of them wound up sitting up here for half the year. If you want to come out and make a difference, come out and run for election. It would be great to have 15, 20 candidates, and then, you know, let the best 3 or 4 win. But, you know, I don't think anybody up here comes out and decides they want to do this because they have greater political aspirations. I think everybody that comes up here cares about the children and cares about the betterment of the school district. So I'll stop my rant there with that. I do want to thank the custodial staff and our secretaries and all the folks in the central office with Mr. DeGeorge and Dr. Clark. You know, it's a 12-month job. They're very hard at work to keep this district running, and I just want to commend them for their continued efforts throughout the summer. And I think with that, I will wish everybody a happy rest of the summer, and we will go on to new business. I didn't forget anything, did I? All right. New business, number 1 through 25A.
Motion?
Second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Peters? Yes. Mrs. DeSenza?
Yes on all except item 2 and attachment A2, nay, 522325 and 950-678. Abstain item 4, and it's not for conflict.
Would you send me a note as always?
Oh, sure.
Thank you, look forward to it. Mr. Riggs? I'm sorry? Oh, I'm sorry, sir. Mrs. Downing?
Okay, yes, except I am abstaining from A2 listed bills, number 950450, item 520300. Also, item bill number 950450, 953821, 524950, and 520300. I'm also abstaining, number 7, I'm abstaining due to conflict. And I'm also abstaining on item 21, just for perceptions of possible conflict, even though there isn't. Otherwise, yes, the others, yes.
Thank you. Mr. Morandi?
Yes.
Mr. Giordano?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, item B, professional days and workshops.
Motion?
Roll call, please. Oh,
Do we have to do anything special with us being on here for the Board of Ed? Do we have to abstain on this
Which one is that?
For the,
Workshop?
the workshop?
Just your own, when did that get in?
It's on for annual workshop, the whole board and not listed separately. It's the second to
We
last
don't,
one.
we don't really even know who's attending yet, so I would say you don't have to.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, did I finish that?
We had a motion. Who was the motion? Who was the second?
Motion and
Mrs.
second.
DeSenza, right?
Yep. Ms. Downing is the second.
Excellent. Mr. Peters?
Yes.
Mrs. DeSenza?
Yes.
Mr. Riggs? Mrs. Downing?
Yes.
Mr. Morandi?
Yes.
Mr. Giordano?
Yes. Item C, certificated personnel 1 through 16, with the exclusion of, on number 15, Stephanie Law. Please remove her.
Yes, sir. So,
Thank you.
1 through 16, with 15 revised to exclude Stephanie Law. Motion, please.
Motion?
Second. Roll call.
Mr. Peters?
Yes.
Mrs. DeSenza?
Yes on all except nay on item 15, the entire item.
Mr. Riggs?
Yes.
Mrs. Downing?
Yes, and item C, I'd like to abstain on Mr. Bergen and Mr. Medensky due to conflict.
Thank you. Mr. Morandi?
Yes.
Mr. Giordano?
Yes. All right, make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
No, there's one
Oh,
more,
oh,
one
oh,
more, one
oh,
more.
Wait, whoa. D, non-certificated personnel.
Motion?
Can you edit
Second.
that out? Roll call, please.
Mr. Peters?
Yes.
Mrs. DeSenza?
Yes.
Mr. Riggs?
Yes.
Mrs. Downing?
Yes.
Mr. Morandi?
Yes.
Mr. Giordano?
Yes.
Thank you.
Now I would like to respectfully make a motion to
We have no
adjourn the
add-ons,
meeting.
right?
No add-ons. Move
Okay.
to adjourn the meeting.
Motion to adjourn?
All in favor? Aye.